Hello, and welcome to Chaotic Creatives, the show about embracing the chaos that comes from living a creative life.
We're your hosts, two self-proclaimed chaotic creative gals. I am Rachael Renee. I'm an artist, a creativity coach, an author, and your internet hype gal.
And I am Lauren Hom, better known as Hom Sweet Hom on the internet. I am a designer, lettering artist, muralist, and chef.
Welcome to the last... Oh my God, I didn't say penultimate last time. Damn it.
I always get so confused by penultimate.
Second to last.
Mm-hmm.
I used it a lot last season and on the Patreon post and everything. Anyway, welcome to our last episode of season 4.
Wow.
Crazy. You said, do we need to reference our formal wear? And I was like, no, but now I want to. Because we dressed up for the last season. I put heels on, which never happens.
That is
Best
true.
place to wear heels, sitting down.
Not having to walk.
Not having to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite dresses that I got at some vintage store and have worn for many a special occasion.
Yeah, the last time I saw you wearing it was your birthday when I made you a cake. I have a photo, I think at least.
I was wearing a red linen dress.
Damn.
Same shape, though.
Same shape.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an aesthetic that I like. Yeah, that shape is a good one.
Which is true. Like I have, if you've been watching this podcast versus listening to it, you've seen me wear the same shirt in 5 different patterns.
Mm-hmm. We know what we like.
Absolutely.
Which I guess is a kind of a segue into the topic that we're talking about today. Like, we know what we like so surely in some capacities through trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last episode, we talked about kind of like creativity being the guiding force in like you following your intuition, trusting your gut in terms of like the work you want to make, but also the life you want to live.
Yeah, creativity as a compass.
Yeah.
A really good compass.
Really good compass. Yeah. And so we wanted to expand on that a little bit, for sure burying the lead a little bit, but we both really like this artist, Yumi Sakagawa.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their posts you have pulled up to share, right?
Yes, I do.
I mean, I think let's kick it off with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And we can link to this post.
Yeah, should I give some context as to... We were talking about, following your intuition and that being a really good compass, and it got us into a later discussion off mic about cravings, because obviously everything ties back to food for me.
Mm-hmm.
And how cravings oftentimes are your body's just like, we have biological systems that your body is like, hey, I'm thirsty. Like, and that's what thirst is. Or like, hey, I need salt or I need sugar. And those are what cravings are. But because of like toxic diet culture, we tell our bodies to shut up.
Yeah.
And like learn to not trust those like natural cravings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a slow practice to like relearn how to trust your natural cravings and intuition.
Or to just even hear it. Like,
yes.
Ooh. Like I think that's something that especially, when we get really busy and it's like, just have more coffee,
Yeah.
We aren't even really listening to our body. And then it's like, oh my God, I haven't eaten today. It's like we're really good at ignoring that, knowing in our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Like staying in a constant state of overwhelm, like so busy that you forgot to eat lunch or...
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read the quote.
Okay.
So what Yumi wrote is not about cravings, but it's about desire, but it's about the same thing. So the most exciting thing about desire is not the successful fulfillment of it. Actually, it is the momentum and direction it takes you on, and how that forward movement alchemizes every molecule of your being into a more alive version of yourself as you step forward away from familiarity and towards the unknown.
Alchemize me.
The name of your future band?
Yeah, my metal band.
Mm-hmm. I'll finish it too.
Oh,
and
sorry,
even in the
it wasn't done.
No, I mean we could have ended there, but when we read this earlier, you really liked this part too.
Okay, thanks.
I read this to Rachel as a bedtime story last night.
Cute.
And even the heartbreak of thwarted desire is still worth it, because the pursuit still awakened these dormant parts of you, revealed the strange beauty and loveliness within yourself you never knew could exist within you. And in this future, damn it, I fucked it up.
It's okay.
I'm not wearing my glasses. And in this rupture that extends to deeper parts of you, that which you never knew before existed, you get to plant new seeds.
Cute. Wow. I'm glad that you said the second part and reminded me that I really liked it, because I do and forgot. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect segue into kind of like the main topic that we wanted to talk about, because I feel like I'm still burying the lead, and I'm going to keep burying it. We're not there yet.
She's digging.
She digging. I feel like I have something that I crave and desire so deeply is romantic partnership. And I have not found that. I mean, I've found it in small doses, but I have not had a long-term relationship in a long time. And it's something that I like do crave and want so badly. And I also have high standards for what I'm expecting a partnership to look like. And so that's why, like, yeah, I could find someone and be unhappy, but I don't want to be. I want to be fulfilled. And I think like through each heartbreak that I experience of something not working out, I am discouraged, but I also like want to have room for that hope. And so like, I liked that second part of like, okay, the heartbreak is showing you what you want. Like you are sad because you wanted this so badly, and you'll get it. You just got to keep pushing through. It reminded me of a quote that I can kind of see. I have my contacts in, but that's still too far. That I have taped to my monitor, and it says, "Hope is a heaviness worth carrying," because it's like, yeah, there's a lot of bad shit happening in the world all the time, and we're especially attuned to it with being so online on the internet. And I feel like hope, though, is like is a natural human thing, and it as like a positive person, like I do believe and see the good in like most people. And so I'm not gonna give up carrying that hope for myself in this capacity. But what we wanted to talk about is not my relationship status, but it's adjacent, because I was talking with my therapist. Shout out Sarah. Hi, Sarah. I was talking with her about men that I've dated, and the last few people that I've tried to date have been long distance, and they've been in other cities. And I think at first I told myself that was because I didn't want to rush into something, and I wanted to foster a relationship, you know, through intentional connection, scheduled, and like, you know, we have to get to know each other before we can just like let the physical kind of take over or like move in too quickly or whatever. But in reflection on dating men in different cities, I have realized that I think I was looking for like an easy path to moving somewhere else. Because even a couple years ago when you were in culinary school, I was like, I'll set my dating profile to New York, because like that would be cool if I like was visiting Lauren and could like come frequently and go on dates and foster a relationship with someone. And then like when I'm ready to quit my job, I could move here.
There was like a natural path forward that you had like in your mind for that.
Yeah. And I think it felt easier to have someone else make the decision for me, where it's like, okay, I fell in love now. Like, obviously I'll just move. And with some reflection and me like complaining like, oh, it was like going to be so nice to like try a new city. My therapist was like, you can just try a new city on your own. And I was like, oh, no, I can't. That's scary. Like I need like a catalyst, a person to date, a landing pad basically for a new city, an established community. And then I was like, but I'm trying to foster these connections with someone in a different place. What if I don't even like that place? And like, once I get to the place that I want to be, then I can meet someone who's already there, because we've both independently made this decision to be there. And so the lead that I've been bearing is, I think I want to move to Brooklyn. Yay! Whee! Yeah, I can't tell if the audience is groaning or hyping me up.
Both, probably.
Yeah.
Like that's probably statistically what's happening.
Yeah, I think after moving, you know, back to my house after my dad passed away and being gone for several months and like, you know, settling into this new routine of working for myself and you know, participating in the juice box and chasing this dream of becoming an artist, I think I'm craving something different, and I have been for a while. And I was looking for someone else to help me, like give me permission almost by like being like, yes, I love you. Move to this city with me.
Yeah.
And actually now it's scarier, but more free to be like, what do I actually want? What do I want my life to look like? I mean, it's how I talk about all the offerings that I have. Like, what do I want my life to look like? And I don't feel ready to try to do my French chateau residency dream yet. I want to be in a place where there's a large creative community. I want to be in a place that I can use public transportation and not have to drive everywhere. I'm ready for some fresh energy. I've never lived in a place where I have to be constrained physically. And I think that that's a fun creative challenge to downsize. Like I have so much stuff, and I referenced myself as like a python earlier, where like, if you give me the space, I'm going to grow to it. So like I need to be constrained so I don't just fill my home with shit. She will
unhinge the jaw and eat the cow.
Exactly. Yeah.
There are mice around, but she will eat the cow.
If the cow's there. Yeah. So all of that intro is like, yeah, what are we, like 3 minutes into the episode? I'm like, I'm burying the lead. Yeah, I think I want to move. And I'm approaching this very cautiously and like intentionally. Like, do I want to move to Brooklyn? Do I want to move? Like my dream, I think, is to live within an hour train ride of a big city like New York. I mean, I've never not lived in Michigan. I've traveled a lot. I've explored a lot of places, but I've never not lived here. And I feel like that's what's next for me. And I think it's like my gut was giving me those signs, but I was interpreting them as like, you need to find someone to date in another city so that you have an easy path to partnership, when actually it's like, oh, I've been craving a new space and like looking for an excuse or permission to move. And I just need to give that permission to myself.
Yeah, I think moving for a like romantic relationship too is just such a like socially legible reason to as well. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to you, other people, and it makes sense. But I think it's a really profound realization that you had. And when we were originally talking about this, it reminded me a lot of how you need to do enough stuff and take enough swings and like have those experiences in order to connect the dots. You need to make enough dots to connect dots.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of how my friend Zia and I talk about how in art school, one of the like, if not the most valuable things is having like critiques over time, because over the course of a semester or a year, you have the same cohort of people and teachers looking at your work and the evolution of it. And you actually get to see a progression or a through line because you're making work. And I remember one of my teachers pointed out like, oh, it seems like food is a common theme in your design work, because I had taken one communication design class. And I was maybe 20 at the time, and I hadn't really thought much about it because, again, I wasn't thinking critically about what I was making. I was just like, la-di-da, like, let me just make what I want to make. But you need to make enough work and do enough stuff and live enough life to see a through line and connect the dots so you can have those aha moments and reorient and go, okay, like, let me do that. And oftentimes it takes a third party, like an outside observer, like a therapist, like a teacher, like a mentor, to point those things out.
Yeah. I mean, I think like that is one of the main benefits of like community is, and like not just like your closest friends, because sometimes, I mean, I think closest friends will tell you what you need to hear and what you want to hear. But sometimes you need someone who like isn't as close to you or has like an objective perspective, like a therapist or like a coach or someone who's not so personally tied to you, to be able to say like, this is the theme that I'm sensing. Like, is this actually what you want to do? Because you're so in it. Like, you know, I do want romantic partnership. I want to build a life with someone with shared goals. And so like that is the lens that I look at a lot of things through, because it's what I want. But having someone be like, oh, but it seems like you're intertwining these two wants together. because that feels easier. It feels easier to make a decision with a person instead of just like, hey, you're the only one in charge of your own life.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
yeah.
When we were talking about it too, it reminded me, I had never connected this before, but it's very much the same type of story I've told about like why I went to culinary school. I used to say, oh, if I won the lottery, my answer was always, I would go to culinary school and host dinner parties. And it took me a while to realize you don't need to win the lottery to do that. There's actually a practical path forward. And what we wanted to talk about today is how powerful it is to make a decision for you, not like tied to another person or another place or another thing. Like making decisions because you want to is harder. It's easier said than done. And when you start to do that, you actually really step into like, I feel like this is going to sound so cheesy, but you step into like your power and like you start to feel like you're actually in the driver's seat of your own experience. But it's scary to do that because I think I talked about this in the last season, but in like leaving my long-term relationship, like being on my own for the first time, it felt scary to have to be 100% accountable for my own life because for the previous 7.5 years, I was a 50% stakeholder in my life because it's like, great, when you have a partner, you defer like half of the big decisions to your partner.
Yeah.
Where are we going to live? What direction is our life going to go in? What are we doing for the holidays?
Yeah.
Prioritize Play, the book, my book, is available for pre-order, and I'm so excited to share it with you. It officially comes out June 9th, but you can pre-order it now. You can pre-order the ebook, the physical book, or even the audiobook, which I will be reading. Exciting. And I'm just really excited to get this in your hands. It's everything that has been my story of prioritizing play and how I got to become this artist and creativity coach that you know today. It has creative challenges, it has play challenges, 5-minute challenges, it has reflection prompts and exercises to do to help you prioritize your play and figure out how to live your big, juicy life, foster deeper connection, build confidence, find your creativity and express it. So pre-order it today. I'm so excited to share this with you.
And I think it's interesting too, because there are some like socially accepted reasons to move. You got a new job, you're going closer to family, you are, going to live with a partner.
That's true.
Those are like socially accepted things. And because there is no like driving factor other than my own desire, that feels scarier. And also, I think like you said, there's something like powerful in like making the decision. Cause I mean, I've been like saying things. I mean, if I look back at the last 4 to 6 years, I've been like, subconsciously like wanting to meet people on the internet instead of meeting people locally to date. And then I've also like loved visiting you in New York or like friends in LA. And I'm like, what other cities can I try? And, so subconsciously, like, again, our bodies knowing maybe before our brains do what we want, and then being able to synthesize that information and be like, do I want this? And now that I'm not tied to my job, which was here and a good excuse for me to stay, I was like, okay, do I want to try living somewhere else? Do I want to like do 3 months here and try this? And I'm open to doing that. And I think I'll use the book tour as like an excuse to explore some new cities. I'm excited about that. And I also am not doing it passively. I'm thinking about like, what are my dream requirements in a city? Like, what I want there to be like good food options. I want to have at least one friend in the city so that I have established community. I'm not starting from scratch. I want there to be a creative community. I mean, I said these things earlier, but I think when I was like working up to being okay with this decision, I was giving myself a lot of like rational brain excuses. Like, how could I afford to live in Brooklyn when I'm living in Michigan, prices? And it's like, once you make the decision, the logistics figure themselves out. Like, like you were talking about with culinary school.
Yeah. with culinary school, like, and to like continue the story from like last episode with like the relationship too, like my ex and I used to like earnestly joke when we would go through like a low period or fight or contemplate splitting up. We'd go, ugh, like it's going to be so annoying to break up because we weren't married, but we were like pseudo married. We had shared bank accounts, credit cards, like we lived together and we had basically set up our life together. We'd been together for a long time. And the logistical part was like, it wasn't the main reason we were staying together. It's not like we had kids or a pet, but we would joke that like, this is going to be a headache to figure out. And what I realized in hindsight was once we did actually split up at the most inconvenient time, like a month after me starting culinary school, which, haha, that's how life happens.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I was planning at all. I flew back for a weekend and we sat down, did all the like splitting up of stuff, and it was fine. Like the logistics should not be the thing that stop you from like, your brain will try to tell you logistics, like I can't do it, but the logistics will figure themselves out once you make the decision.
Yeah. And I think a good example of this when we were talking about this before, when we were brainstorming, like when I kind of accepted that I might want to move, I was like, okay, where do I want to move? I want to move to a bigger city than here. I have a friend, one of my best friends lives in Chicago and has a 2-bedroom condo and was like, you can live with me. And I was like, amazing. Chicago feels safe. It's closer to my mom in terms of like flight in case I want to.
If you made a pros and cons list, there's a lot of pros.
There's a lot of pros. Yeah. It's still Midwest. It's a train ride back to Detroit to see my community here. And then I was like, oh, Brooklyn, like expensive, further away, but also like all the cheap international flights that go out of there. Like it's cheap to fly in and out because there's so many flights, bigger creative community. And I found myself like leaning more toward the safer option of Chicago because that felt more comfortable in terms of like Midwest. I've been there a lot more, closer to my family. And like finding those logical, like rational reasons why I should choose the safer option. And then I'm like, well, I can't afford to live in Brooklyn. But I'm like, so many people do. I will be fine. I will figure it out. I will sacrifice other things in order to do this. Like, I don't want to just choose the safe option. I want to do the thing that I actually want to do. And I still don't even know if that's truly Brooklyn, but it's the top of the list right now. Yeah. And I think, like you said, like as soon as I kind of accepted that, oh, Chicago is the safe choice. I actually like, I don't feel drawn to Chicago. I felt like that was an option for me because I had someone that I could live with. And then that removes the hurdles of like finding housing without living there and stuff like that. And I'm like, people do it all the time. It's fine. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think there are seasons of life where I understand that like ease and like that could be the driving force of a decision. But this isn't one of those times.
This is not one of those times, yeah.
You're evaluating your situation based on like what is available to you, what makes sense. And if Chicago is the safer option, like I think that moving to New York or somewhere around there, like a bigger city like that, even if it's a higher cost of living, if it's within the realm of possibility, you will figure it out. If it's just like so far out of reach that like it would actually stress you out, like the cons really outweigh the pros, then like you wouldn't entertain it. Like we live in the rational world.
Yeah.
But like you can figure out how to make it work. Like Z and I always talk about this as people who have been self-employed for most of our careers. There's so many levers you can pull. Like you make more, you spend less, like you figure it out. And so it's really just figuring out the lifestyle that you want and what your priorities are.
And I mean, I think part of the reason that I'm drawn there is because you and I are creative collaborators and we're doing more in terms of like hosting workshops together, speaking together. And like a similar reason why you referenced in the last season of like wanting to move back. There's just like, there are creative opportunities that I feel like I'm sure are in Detroit, but I am not tapped into. And I've also talked about like when I moved to Detroit over a decade ago, I came in as like a, fresh out of grad school. I want to claim this engineering title. Like I made friends. I, did craft workshops. I learned how to letterpress. I grew my businesses here, but I never felt like I was a part of the creative community. And that is my own like limiting like beliefs around like, I'm not a real quote unquote artist. So like I never went to the events because I was like, these aren't my people. I'm not allowed to be here because I'm not a real artist, which is not true. And that has nothing to do with the people that are at these events or hosting these events. It was my own like shit, my own brain garbage, as you like to call it. And so I also feel like I'm already going through such a transition this past year with everything that has changed in my life that I'm like, why not keep going? And also like enter a new community with this like confidence of like, I am an artist and a creative and I deserve to be in these spaces. And like, I think I need that shift and change of scenery for myself to be able to like fully embrace this new identity that I feel like I've emerged into, like, butterfly chrysalis bullshit, where it was like, I spent a lot of time melting down my identity and like refining and figuring out. And then like goo year happened. And like, I hope that, the rest of 2026 feels like I'm emerging and not still in the goo, in the chrysalis. But I mean, we always are. It continues to happen. But yeah, in summary, I need a fresh start.
That makes a lot of sense.
Even the goo part?
No, I can't. I will not comment on the goo part. I will comment, though, on the change of scenery.
Yeah.
I liken it to, we were talking about this earlier, but when you are going through personal like growth or change of scenery makes sense because when you move to a new city, no one knows who you are. Like there are fewer expectations of you from others and of yourself. You are experiencing yourself as a different person when you move to a new place.
Yeah.
And you could move anywhere, right? You're taking your best guess. And you kind of made your list of what you want from cities. And that's all any of us can do when we move to a new place. And you're making an informed decision. And what I told you earlier is like, you will move somewhere. And even if it's you're going to sign a year lease or a 3-month like sublease, everything's temporary. Even if it's the Rachael method. Even if you put the yellow paint on the wall and you decide you don't like it and you spent the $100 or whatever the rent is.
Like year of rent, sure.
Yeah, the rent version of the yellow paint.
Yeah.
A year blasts by. We know that a year blasts by.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's reversible. Everything is technically temporary if it takes some of the pressure off.
Yeah, it does. And it's not like I would like, I want to try it. I want to give myself, I think I'll probably maybe do a 3-month, sublease to just give it a shot. I am not going to like sell. I mean, I'll probably sell a lot of stuff that I have because I should.
Facebook Marketplace queen. Actually, no, I think that you'd be better off. We can talk about this next season. You'd be better off doing like a yard sale or something.
Oh, yeah.
One fell swoop.
Yep. Get it done. Yeah.
I'll come help.
Thank you. Yeah. And then I don't think I'll sell my house just in case I do want to come back.
For the water wars.
What?
For the water wars.
For the water wars. Yeah. Unfortunately, like safe climate cities are something to consider, and like being in the Great Lakes. Yeah.
100%.
I mean, we talked about that at some of my like industry conferences in my day job. Like we have access to a lot of fresh water. Anyway, we're not going to go into that, but
subscribe to the Patreon to hear more. Yeah. I'm kidding.
It's just us rambling about like how to build a well yourself and filter clean water.
How to catch rainwater.
Yeah.
I would actually love to know how to do that.
You get a rain barrel. I got one attached to my gutters.
Do you have to filter it?
Well, yeah. If you want to drink it, you gotta do filtering. Yeah. You shouldn't drink rain. You shouldn't even water your plants with rain barrel water because it is coming off of the asphalt on your roof mostly. Anyway, yeah, I think it's temporary. Like you said, like it doesn't have to be like you have to sell your house and figure out how to finance a house in Brooklyn. Like, it's not that permanent. And even if I did do that, which feels like way more than logistics that I'm ready to tackle, like that is, people sell and buy houses all the time. And so it is a big decision. It feels like a big decision, but like you said, it doesn't have to be permanent. And, I want to circle back to like the identity thing and like showing up in a new space as a new person. Like, one of the things that I have taught and have talked about is like, can you cosplay as the version of yourself that you want to be when you're like on vacation? You know, nobody knows you. And this is like a bigger version of that, where it's like, I'm moving to a new city. I'm going to cosplay as this most confident, creative version of myself. And like, that's how people will get to know me.
Yeah.
And it's like, truly, the more that you introduce yourself as an artist, I mean, again, across the 4 seasons of this podcast, people have heard me change my titles. And like, now I feel very comfortable saying I'm an artist.
Yeah. It's interesting, like the precedents that get set. Like, there's something really beautiful about having like people who know you, who've known you for a long time, but watching people, like, change is uncomfortable for everybody. And humans are kind of change averse. It's uncomfortable for us.
Even though we're so malleable.
Yeah, like it's just something that like bristles us a little bit. And there is something nice about starting a new chapter with someone who they meet you at this like clean break where like there's no needing to explain, like, I used to be this, I used to be this. There's no needing to say like, explain the change, because they met you as you are now.
Are changed, yeah.
And I think that you're just ready for like that chapter because you've been so established here that there's a pre-existing story and it makes sense. I mean, there's also a reason too why it's not surprising to me why so many people change up their haircut or their look after a breakup. It's like a very common trope.
Me just getting my face tattooed.
Sure. Yeah.
A little bit more permanent.
Like, people typically cut their hair or like get a tattoo, get a piercing. Like, you shake things up because it is a like rupture in your life. It's like a spike in your timeline or in it disrupts. And those are moments where it's actually a really beautiful moment to say like, do I want something else? Even though they're painful, it's actually a nice moment for self-reflection and a nice way to like reorient.
Hi, you know how we're always yapping on this podcast about trying new things in your creative business? This episode is brought to you by one of my creative experiments, my Mural Mockups. You get 10 high-resolution Photoshop mockups with easy-to-edit smart objects, which in non-creative dork speak means that you can drag your drawing into the mockup and it'll instantly make your art look like a mural on a real wall. Pretty cool, right? Fun fact, Kristle, who you all know and love as the editor of this podcast, shot all of the photos for these mockups, so I love that. These mockups are perfect for muralists and aspiring muralists who want to shorten the time it takes them to add mural images to their portfolios and present their work to clients. You can head to homsweethom.com/mural-mockups or the link in the episode description to check them out. Okay, now back to the show.
Thinking about this as we're talking, and I know I opened it up by saying that, you know, I'm in search of love. I'm a romantic. I have, in the last couple of years, known that I was on this path of change toward this evolution of being this like self-employed artist, but I wasn't there yet. And it was hard to explain, like, no, I'm working toward this. And like, in a year, I'll be able to move and try living in your city. Or like, hey, I actually can't commit to that right now, but like, I will be able to. And so like, I was almost presenting as this current version a year ago, but that disconnect was hard for anyone that I was dating to probably, you know, I mean, this is me just giving an assumption, but like by fully showing up as this version of me and accepting this change on my own in terms of moving, like, I'm just like, okay, I'm showing up as present me in this moment. I am ready to meet someone where I'm at, not where I will be.
Yes, I am here. It reminds me of something, either we talked about this off mic or maybe in another episode, but you mentioned a similar thing when it came to talking about like being an artist and your artwork. You want to have a portfolio documenting your work in order to back up what you're telling people of like, hey, I'm an artist, I make this kind of work. And you want like a visual cue to show people, so it's not like in theory.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go to your Instagram, you have process and you're talking about concepts, but you feel like you don't have like a catalog of work to show people that is legible as artist.
Right.
And the same way that like you can talk about it, but you might not be legible as someone who could move to Vancouver or Austin, right?
Yeah.
Like people might understand it, but because you're not there,
yeah,
I think there's like a gap. And so it's almost like this is what a lot of us talk about in the design space. It's just part of marketing your work is you have to speak to people in the language they understand.
Yeah.
And having a portfolio is, you can talk about it, but having the visual work is the most important part.
Yeah, like the actions, like I know that my actions will back up my words because
Yes.
that is the type of person that I am. I need to do the thing that I say I'm going to do. But I think a lot of people aren't or have a lot more flexibility with that. And so like the portfolio or the action of moving is like the proof. And so like instead of me trying to meet current potential partner where they're at as future me, it's like, yeah, just showing up and being like, yeah, I am. Here's my work. I'm an artist.
I know we've
Marry
shared
me.
a lot of quotes in this, an unusual amount of quotes in this episode, but this also reminds me, what you're saying reminds me of a quote from a poet that Kristle introduced me to.
Cool. Kristle, you're so cool.
Kristle, you are so cool.
We love you.
She's burying her head in her hands. Padraig Otuma, he hosts Poetry Unbound.
Oh, yeah, you guys shared that with me. I love it.
Such a lovely podcast. I don't consider myself a poetry person, but I got into it because it's such a great format. Every episode, he reads a poem and then he discusses it and explains it to you as a poet himself,
Mm-hmm.
and then rereads it to you so you can kind of like let it soak in again.
Yeah.
And it helps me because I'm the kind of person who previously was like, I don't understand poetry, therefore I'm just not going to engage because it makes me feel dumb.
Uh-huh.
And there was a poem, I don't even remember what the poem was, but the poem was about pilgrimage. And in Padraig's breakdown of the poem, he said something really beautiful about how pilgrimage isn't actually like about the journey. Like pilgrimage doesn't begin when you take the first step on the path. Pilgrimage begins when you decide you want to go. And I thought that was really powerful. And I found it to be true in my creative practice. I hear it in what you're saying of when you feel that spark of like, I want to do this thing, that's actually when things start to alchemize and the gears start alchemize me.
Alchemize me.
That's actually when the gears start to turn. And I think part of the frustration, and we touched on this earlier in the season, of the gap between ideas and capacity and action.
Yeah.
The gears start to turn slowly. You might not even realize it, but when you decide you want to go in a direction, even if it's just like that, like gut feeling, your body starts to turn the gears and you start to orient in that direction. And it is frustrating because there is a gap between like, okay, I'm not quite there yet. And you're so far ahead in your mind and people can't quite see it yet because it hasn't materialized.
Yeah.
But the journey has already begun much earlier than you think it has.
Yeah. That reminds me of something that I was thinking about when talking about creative work. Like, I feel like I don't talk about it until I have the thought like 90% sort of like synthesized in my brain of like, this is how I want to create this body of work and this is what I want to share about it. And I got here from this. I feel like I have had enough experiences where I'm explaining how I want, like I'm specifically talking about the Pinata Project, which I've talked to you about, I know. But I've had enough experiences where I'm like describing what I want to make and had like the blank stare or like people don't understand. And I've had that happen enough where I'm like, I'm the only one who needs to trust my vision. I can see it so clearly in my mind, but a lot of people can't get there until that visual or that action is taken. And so like, you're totally right. Like the process has already begun. I have not completed that body of work, but I know that I will. And I know that once I create it, people will be like, oh, but talking about it isn't enough. It's like, you don't need other people to like have buy-in on your ideas. You have to be the one who trusts your creative vision the most. And like what we talked in the last episode about is like, you know, trusting that drive and making little creative decisions in order to kind of build that confidence up. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's also just like, because you've had the conversation in your head and thought through the idea a million times, it's so legible to you.
Yes.
But what is legible to others is like a visual, like some kind of tangible thing.
Yeah,
and
they're not thinking about this like concept or philosophy at all hours like I am. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you're operating on different timelines.
Totally.
Like they're on page 1 and you're on page like 464.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the visuals are really just there to like get them caught up to speed, to expedite the process.
Yeah.
It'll take them from 1 to 464.
Yeah. Love that. Since we're talking about books and page numbers, I think there's another quote you wanted to reference from the novel All Fours.
Oh,
which we both read. I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, we did have a note about this, but after my breakup, my friend Lauren Ronquillo recommended that I read a book called All Fours by Miranda July. I don't read a ton of fiction.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, like I'll usually take a recommendation from a friend. And
I got fiction recs for you.
Oh, I know. I think the audience knows too.
Yeah, they do.
We should share a photo of like your bookshelf or something.
Yeah. I mean, we did a photo shoot with all my fantasy romance before we shot season 2. That's right. Yeah. Anyway.
Wow. Because when I was telling her about what happened, and I saw her shortly after I started culinary school, she was like, I noticed this theme in like, we're all about like, we were in our early 30s, and she was like, all of my girlfriends seem to be like exiting long-term relationships right now. And it's always like the woman who has this kind of like dissatisfaction, who like wants a little bit more. And like, there's this like longing for more where she decides to end the relationship. And this was just a pattern that she saw in her own life and her friend group. And the book is very much about that. And there was a quote in the book where this woman who's thinking about like ending her marriage is wondering, like, should she stay, should she go? And she says something along the lines of, it seems like there is a like fork in the road between like a life spent like longing or a life spent full of like surprises and like the unknown. And I really liked that because I did find myself trying to rationalize like, okay, you can stay in this relationship. You'll be yearning for something that like you'll just have to come to terms with the fact that you won't be able to have. And like, maybe that'll be okay. Like, or you could go down the other path of like, I don't know what's going to happen, but can I lean into like the unknown of this is going to be exciting? At least I'm at least in the driver's seat of this like adventure bus.
Yeah. And I think that whether it is applying to a relationship or not, like that, it's like discomfort either way, right? Like discomfort of staying the same.
Choose your discomfort. Yeah.
Or the discomfort of not knowing and like maybe having to make some hard decisions, or like not having anyone else give you permission and you having to like do it on your own. You have to decide. And I think it's a balance. And I think we were talking about like creative people often have like a yearning for more. And that's beautiful. And I don't think that that's like achieve more productivity. I think it's more along the lines of like, we're curious and always wanting to grow and learn and evolve. And if we can sit with the discomfort of like the not knowing, that's probably a more fulfilling life. than sitting with the discomfort of yearning for more, but not giving ourselves permission to find out what that more is.
Yeah. More or even different is maybe the right word. Like
more aligned.
Yeah. I don't know if this is an overshare, but I recently had dinner with my ex, and it was great. And we still talk pretty candidly, and he was like, you know, it used to hurt my feelings when you would say, like, I would say very pragmatically, like, we will be together for as long as we want to be together. I would never say, like, we'll be together forever.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make any promises that I'm not going to keep.
What we're going to be like next year, let alone in 15.
You know, we both came from families of divorce. Like, I'm an optimist, but I also want to be realistic and, like, set expectations. And I don't want to, like, make a promise of, like, together forever and then just coast off of that promise and not put in any work. And he said, it used to hurt my feelings when you'd say that, as if, like, you weren't in it fully. But he was like, I think that's all you can really do is make sure that, like, this still makes sense for us to be together.
And I think, like, I feel like in our society, you know, the length of a relationship is touted as success.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
When it's actually, like, how many miserable people have you met that have been married for 50 years? Because, like, back then a woman couldn't have her own bank account, and, like, you had to survive. And now it's like, isn't the sign of success actually separating from the relationship when it's no longer fulfilling for either of you? Like, that's still success. 7 years is still a successful relationship. And a 1-year relationship can be successful. Someone who dates for 3 months and then becomes friends with someone is successful. Like, the length of time is not the indicator of success. And I feel that way about, like, living in a place. Like, I don't want to find my forever home in terms of, like, you know, I found this house, I bought this house, I did the adult checkbox things of, like, got a job, saved up enough, bought the house, and now I'm good. I want to try new things. And, like, if I go live in Brooklyn for 3 months and that scratches the itch and I want to come back to Detroit, great. If I go to Brooklyn and I'm like, oh no, this is my forever home, and then in 15 years I'm like, I'm over it, that's okay too. Like, there's no one way to live our lives. It just has to be, like, constant reflection in terms of, like, is this still aligned with the life I'm trying to live? And we're allowed to change our minds. Yeah. And I think, like, that is such a beautiful way to look at the relationship. Like, we'll be in it as long as we both want to try to be in it.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to relationships with, like, people, I think that this can be done with care, right? And with communication. Like, we're not being careless with, like, you know, I don't want this anymore, like, bye.
Yeah.
It's just the same way we talk about, like, listening to the whispers, like, checking in with yourself, like, little check-ins, like, more consistently. Just make sure that you're on the same page, because you are both, like, living, breathing, changing beings. And, you know, we did an episode, I think in season 2, about how there are so many parallels between creative advice and relationship advice. Yeah. And you are in a relationship with your creativity, and you need to talk to it and nurture it and listen to it, because it's obviously not, well, isn't a living, breathing thing because you're a living, breathing thing? Kind of. I'm not going to go down that road.
Alchemize me.
But yeah, like, you can think of it like seasons or chapters. Like, nothing necessarily has to be forever. And also, some of us just have more of a, like, tendency to want to bop around. Some people, and there are things about me that are more, like, solidified and consistent. Like, more or less, I wear, like, 3 pairs of shoes. And that's...
We know you like that one type of top.
Yeah, like, we have our creature comforts. And then there are other arenas where we just, like, want all the things and want to try all...
Yeah, because I think, like, it's, you know, we've established our personal expression or understanding of self in certain capacities in our lives. And then in some, it's like, ooh, this is interesting to me right now. Like, maybe it's a new facet of my personality or identity or expression that I'm interested in curating and like honing in on. And that's great.
Yeah.
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 I think we are probably over time, but this was, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I'm excited for you. And
thank you.
when we first started brainstorming this episode, I was like, ooh, it's so interesting that we're leaving season 4 off with you kind of in a similar space as me at the end of
like a
season
little
3.
over a year later.
Yeah. And I just want to say you're going to be great.
Thank you.
Everyone's rooting for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be relying on your friendship if I do decide Brooklyn is the spot. But yeah, I'm excited to see, what's next. And I'm also not rushing. Like there's no urgency. Yes. I've been working on the book and the community for the juice box community, for the past however many months and a year basically for both of them. And, I could have, when I got back to Detroit and was like, oh, this doesn't feel like home, I could have been like, I'm moving right now. But I've given myself time to kind of like work on these things and really noodle on what I want. And yeah, we'll see where I land. We'll see where we record season 5.
Oh my goodness. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun. Yay. Well, thank you for listening. And can't believe we're 4 seasons in.
I know.
Yay.
Wow.
We'll see you maybe in a mini series, maybe in season 5.
Yeah.
Another crash course.
I was thinking, I know we talked about this. Maybe we can end on one thing that you hope by the time that this episode comes out in 2026.
May.
What do you hope Rachael at this time has done?
Oh, we are talking a lot about timeline shifts.
It's time is but one factor. Like for us, I think I'd love it if we taught another workshop.
Yeah.
Like I think that is very possible for us.
That's not a stretch goal. That's a goal.
It's a goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think by now we would have taught another workshop.
I like that. By the time this episode comes out, I would like to have a portfolio of work that I'm proud of and plans in place for potentially moving.
So out of the waffling
Out
stage.
of waffling, I have narrowed it down to some very I'm in the logistics phase of planning what that looks like, whether that's I'm in between 2 cities or I've chosen a city and I'm now thinking about the logistics, the finances, all of the practical stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
What about you personally?
Me personally, I would like to have hosted at least 2 dinner parties just at my home for friends on the dining table that I built. And also, I would have liked to have hosted 1 paid dinner party by this time.
I love that. I will check in on the release date of this episode.
Great.
And see how you're doing on that goal.
Thank you.
Yeah. Love that. I think we should leave the listeners with setting a goal for yourself. What do you want to do in the next 6 months? What do you want to do by the end of 2026? Goal and stretch goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gentle goals.
Gentle goals. Yeah.
We're the gentle parenting of the creative advice world.
Yeah, we are. We're soft.
We are soft. We're sweetie pies. What are we supposed to do?
Yeah. Big old gushy hearts. And I love that about us.
I'm going to stop you before you get into more oozy territory.
Oh, you didn't like goo. Yeah, that's funny. I was being alchemized into a new type of being.
Thank you so much for joining us for season 4.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.